Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, Tiger families. Welcome to Millennium High School's 2022-2023 Athletic Winter Sports Parent Meeting. Thank you for taking the time to watch this meeting to make sure we're all on the same page to make the season as best as possible for your student athlete. My name is Mr. Gordillo or Mr. G. I'm the Assistant Principal Athletic Director here at Millennium High School. First, let me congratulate you on your son or daughter making one of our winter sports teams. We're fortunate to have some of the best programs in the state, so it is no small feat for your son or daughter to make one of our teams. So congratulations, and I wish you the best of luck this season. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself so you know who your athletic director is. As I said earlier, most people call me Mr. G or Mr. Gordillo. The choice is yours. This is my 8th year here at Millennium High School, my 7th as the athletic director. Prior to being at Millennium High School, I was an athletic director at another school here in the West Valley. So I'm on year 12, I believe, as an athletic director, and I look forward to working with your family this winter season and hopefully for other seasons to come. I will try and get through this video as fast as possible. I know that your time is precious, and I just want to make sure, again, that we all have the same information and we understand the expectations and the rules and procedures that could come up during the course of this season, and you know how to navigate that or what to expect as best as you can. So first, I'd like to begin by introducing our student trainers, our trainers, excuse me, not student trainers, but our athletic trainers that work with our student athletes. Okay. This year we have two new trainers to our campus. Um, Cassie Barlow is a sports medicine teacher here on campus, and then she is a trainer after school working, helping students with rehab as well as working events. So you will see her at those, and you also will communicate with her in regards to rehabilitation or getting your student athlete cleared after an injury. Carly Walkup is our other trainer that is here as well. She'll be working on rehab and working after school and at events as well. We're fortunate to have both of them. We stole Cassie from another school here on the west side. She's got a lot of experience. And Carly's new to Arizona, coming to us from California. And she has done a great job here in the fall, and we're excited to continue working with both of them here in the winter. I want to go through a few things that will be important in terms of our athletic trainers. The first one is that if your son or daughter are to get injured throughout the course of the season, we ask that you allow our trainers to evaluate them and see them, and they can often diagnose and help best guide you on what the next steps are, if you need to see someone outside of the school or not. Obviously, these are your sons and daughters. Whoever you choose to see is completely up to you, but sometimes they're able to recommend you and even oftentimes get you in quicker than you would be if you try to navigate the process on your own. So again, we would encourage you to utilize them, allow them to evaluate your student athlete. We hope everybody stays healthy this season and that nobody has any injuries. But we also know that in sports, oftentimes injuries can occur. If that does happen to your son or daughter, I want to explain the return to play clearance process in terms of how it impacts our athletic trainers and your son or daughter. Um, if your son or daughter is injured, our athletic trainers are the final decision makers in when they return to play. So if your son or daughter were to go see an outside physician, whether that's their primary care doctor, that's an emergency visit, that's an orthopedic doctor, whatever the doctor may be. Once they see an outside physician, we cannot clear them to play until we have written clearance from the doctor that they have seen. So, for example, if you go to the doctor and they say student athlete must sit out for 2 weeks. Well, before we can allow them to return after the 2 weeks, we would need written clearance that says from that doctor they are now cleared to return without restrictions, or if there are restrictions, what those restrictions are. That information, that written clearance would be sent to myself as well as Ms. Barlow and Ms. Walkup. They will review that. And as I said earlier, ultimately, they're the final clearance process for your son or daughter to play. Sometimes that'll be, hey, the doctors cleared them, they're ready to go. And sometimes that might be, hey, we're not comfortable yet. We need to wait a little bit longer. And if they do that, that's not because they want your son or daughter to miss extra time or miss extra games. That's because their health is paramount to our athletic trainers, and they feel like that's in the student athlete's best interest. So please understand that all decisions that they make are what they believe is in your student athlete's best interest. As you can see here on the screen is the email to contact both of them, as well as the phone number to contact them at their office. They will send out communication via the coaches in regards to expectations that they have. But my advice would be is if your son or daughter needs to be seen by them, to email to set up a time and information will be communicated back to you in response to your email. But that would be the best way to communicate with them. Okay. Hopefully, again, everybody stays healthy. But if not, please contact our trainers. Thank you. Moving on, we want to talk about academic eligibility. There are two parts to our academic eligibility policy here in our district. So this is not a Millennium High School policy. This is an Agua Fria Union High School District policy. And as I said, there's two components. This is the first component. There are credits earned. So each grade level has a certain number of credits that they have to have earned in order to be eligible to participate in athletics and extracurricular activities here in our district. Obviously, freshmen have just this is their first year in high school. They haven't had the opportunity to earn credits yet, so there's no credits earned requirement for freshmen. But sophomores have to have earned at least 4 credits. Juniors have to have earned at least 10 credits, and seniors have to have earned at least 16 credits. These are not numbers that were just randomly chosen. These are the number of credits that has a student at that grade level on track to graduate on time. We love having your sons and daughters here, but ultimately the goal is for them to leave Millennium High School and move on with the next phase and journey of their life. And in order for that to happen, they need to be on track to graduate. So if any student athlete is below the number of credits that's required for their grade level, then they are academically ineligible. So, an example to use if a sophomore only has 3 credits, they would be considered academically ineligible. So, any student athlete who's deficient in credits, there is a one time waiver that they can apply for if they are credit deficient. That waiver, again, is only granted one time during their 4 years. So, if that's used during their junior year, in their senior year, they wouldn't be able to do the same thing if they are still credit deficient. The way that the waiver works is that the student athlete would meet with their counselor. They would work with their counselor on a plan to get them back on track. And then the waiver application, as well as the plan to get back on track, is submitted to the principal. The principal ultimately reviews and decides whether or not to grant the waiver to allow the student athlete to play. Okay. So please understand that that's at the discretion of the principal. And also please understand that that is only granted one time during their high school career here at Millennium High School. Um, what will happen is once the official rosters are made, I will review each student athlete on the rosters to determine their academic eligibility. So we check for their credits earned. If they are deficient, I will meet with the student athlete, inform them of that. I will get them with their counselor so their counselor can begin to work on that plan if they choose to move forward with the applying for the academic waiver. And then I will also communicate via email with the student athlete, parent, and head coach so that we all are aware of the situation. Okay. The second part of the academic eligibility policy is when we check grades. Okay. So in our district, there's an official grading period every 4.5 weeks. So it's either a progress report or a report card. The grades on progress report and on report cards are what determine the academic eligibility. Okay, student athletes must have a passing grade in all of their classes in order to be eligible. So when grades come out, we pull a report on all of our student athletes that are currently on a roster. Any student who has at least one F becomes academically ineligible for a minimum of 1 week. At the semester, it is actually 3 weeks. Okay. So if they have an F, grades usually come out on Friday, progress reports come out on Wednesday. The ineligibility period begins on Saturday. Okay. So you will be notified via email that your son or daughter is academically ineligible. It will have the information on when the sit period begins as well as when it ends. So student athletes become ineligible on a Saturday. The following Friday, we will recheck the grades of all student athletes that are academically ineligible, and any student that is passing will regain eligibility that next Saturday. So begins on a Saturday, they would regain eligibility the following Saturday. That is a 7-day sit period. However, if they are still failing when we check their grades that next Friday, then they would remain academically ineligible until they are passing the class that caused them to be academically ineligible. We'll recheck everybody automatically that next Friday, but after that, If a student athlete is still ineligible, it becomes that student athlete's responsibility to communicate to me that they are now passing so that I can verify it and reinstate their academic eligibility. So, again, that next Friday, we'll recheck everybody automatically. If they're still failing, it becomes their responsibility once they're passing to notify me. They can do that by coming up to the office before school, after school, at lunchtime, or they can email me and I can check and verify their grades. Okay. If your student athlete does receive an F on an official grading period, and your student athlete or yourself does not believe that that grade is accurate or has questions about that grade, please contact the teacher of that class. The teacher of that class is ultimately the one who determines what their grade is in that class. There's nothing that I can do. There's questions that I cannot answer because I'm not the teacher of that class. Teacher of that class can explain why they're failing, why their grade is what it is, as well as any questions you may have in terms of what they can do to get their grade up to passing to regain eligibility. If you contact me with questions about that, why they are failing a class or saying that the grade's not right, this isn't accurate, I'm going to refer you back to the teacher because that is my job. My role in this is to inform you of their eligibility status. Um, and the teacher's job is to help you in terms of answering questions with the class. Okay. So please contact teachers if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you. Moving on from the academic eligibility. So our district does have a participation fee that all student athletes are required to pay in order to participate in athletics. It is a $100 participation fee per sport. It is due before the first game. However, if a student qualifies for free or reduced lunch, the participation fee is only $50. Okay, so it is $100 or $50 for free or reduced lunch. Students will not be able to play in a game until the fee is paid. So the fee must be paid prior to the first game in order for them to be eligible to play in the game. So what will happen is the bookstore will receive the rosters of all sports, all winter sports. They will then send an email directly to the student and parent, informing them that they've placed a participation fee charge on their bookstore account. That email will also have directions on how that fee can be paid. It can be paid online, can be paid in person by yourself or by the student athlete. And then once that fee is paid, then we mark them off as cleared to participate in games. So please begin making those payments as soon as you receive that email. Thank you. Transportation is always a very popular and subject when it comes to athletics each season. So I want to make sure we're aware of what our practicing policy is in our district, which is that all students are required to ride to and from all school events on school provided transportation. So student athletes are required to ride school transportation to all their games and from all their games. There's not a situation where parent can say, hey, well, we live closer to this school or we have plans after this, so can we just take our son or daughter after their game to wherever it is that you're looking to go. They'll be required to ride to and from um, all school events on school provided transportation. So please plan for that accordingly. As a former athlete myself and talking with current athletes, the transportation, the bus rides, those are some of the funnest times and most memorable experiences in athletics, the bonding with the team, with the coaches. So I think it is a fun time, but please understand that if you reach out and ask, can you take your son or daughter to a game or can you pick them up from the game? Unfortunately, we're going to have to answer that no, they'll have to ride to and from on school provided transportation. Thank you for your understanding of this in advance. We appreciate it. Attendance policy. Uh, Students must attend at least half of their classes in a school day to be eligible to practice or play in games on that school day. So if I have 6 class periods, then I need to be present for at least 3 of those in order to practice that day or to play in a game that day. If I am not in class for that amount of time, I would be not be eligible to practice or play that day. So it is very important that student athletes attend class, all of their classes, but again, they need to attend at least half the day to be eligible to practice or play in a game on that day. If there are extenuating circumstances, you can contact me. What are extenuating circumstances? If I have a doctor's a doctor's appointment, and that causes me to miss time. If there's a family, there's a funeral, things of that nature would be considered extenuating circumstances. And you can reach out directly to me regarding their attendance so that I can evaluate if they'd be cleared to participate or not. Okay, so please make sure your sons or daughters attend class so they're eligible to practice and play in games. Thank you. In our district, we have an athletic code of conduct. Again, this is not a Millennium Athletic Code of Conduct. This is Agua Fria Union High School District Code of Conduct. I would encourage you to review the athletic code of conduct with your student athlete. So as you're getting cleared to register my athlete, one of the documents that you and your son or daughter signs that you're agreeing to is the athletic code of conduct. Sometimes we're racing to get cleared and we don't always read through everything carefully. If that is you, I would encourage you to go back through with your son or daughter and read through that athletic code of conduct so that everybody understands the expectation of our student athletes. We do take our code of conduct seriously. We do enforce our code of conduct. That code of conduct does have some things that could lead to immediate removal from the team for the rest of the season. What would be those things? Those things would be possession or use of drugs, possession or use of alcohol, um, fighting, any act of violence would be grounds for being removed for the season. So some of the things that you're seeing prevalent in schools throughout our country would be vaping. There's two types of vaping. There's um, the tobacco-based vaping, nicotine-based vaping, commonly referred to as juice, and then there is the vaping of marijuana wax. So those are two different things. So if someone is vaping marijuana wax or in possession of marijuana wax, that is a drug, a narcotic, and that would be grounds for removal from the team for possession of or use of drugs. If someone were in possession of or using tobacco-based vape, that would be grounds for suspension from the team, but not immediate removal on the first offense because that is not classified as a drug. Um, so those are things to be aware of. Hopefully, nobody on here has any code of conduct violations, and we don't get to that point. But I do want to make sure you're aware. One of the other things that comes up from time to time is, if a student's involved in a fight, one of the things that's commonly most referred to is, oh, they were defending themselves. Once a student participates in a fight, regardless of who started it, is classified as mutual combat by district policy. And if they are active participant in a fight, that is grounds for removal from the team for the rest of the season. So please be aware of that. My advice would be if you see something going on that is a violation of school policy or something you shouldn't be around, is just to leave right away so that you don't get lumped in with that and accused of anything. So again, please review the code of conduct with your sons and daughters to make sure everybody understands the expectations. If your son or daughter is in violation of a code of conduct, the school discipline will supersede the athletic part. So what that means is the school discipline will happen first, and once they return from the school discipline, a meeting will be set up for a code of conduct hearing with the parents, myself, the head coach of the program, and the student athlete. Okay, but school discipline would happen first. Thank you. Also, the code of conduct is an on-campus or off-campus code of conduct. Please be aware of that as well. Thank you. Transfers. So I think sometimes there's a misconception on what a transfer student is. So this is the AIA's transfer policy. A transfer is any student that has attended another high school prior to Millennium High School. They're considered a transfer. Um, all transfers must complete a 550 form and register my athlete. There is a link to that form. If your son or daughter is a transfer, they have not completed the 550 form, they can come to my office and I can give them instructions on how to complete that. But they must complete a 550 form prior to being able to rule on their eligibility. Students who are first-time transfers, so they have only transferred from one high school to Millennium High School, they're required to sit out the first 50% of PowerPoint games. If there's not PowerPoint games, then it's considered the first 50% of opportunities. I understand that rule sometimes people don't think that rule should apply to their son or daughter because they have not transferred for athletic purposes, and I understand that. But the rule states that it's for all transfers. They're required to sit out the first 50% of the season. If a student has transferred more than once, so Millennium High School is not the first time they've transferred, but they've transferred from one high school to another high school and then now have transferred to Millennium High School, then they are ineligible for one full season because they're considered a multiple transfer. Again, this is the AIA's policy. Our job is to enforce that policy and make sure that we're only playing student athletes that are eligible. If you are a transfer and you do have to sit out, whether that's 50% or whether that's 100% of the season, transfers are eligible to practice. They're eligible to travel at the discretion of the coach. So there's nothing that stops them from practicing or transferring. They just can't compete in a game or a match until their required sit period is out. I will review all student athletes on rosters for our winter sports team. I will identify each transfer. I meet with each transfer to verify if they've completed the 550 form, as well as to inform them on what their eligibility status is and how the transfer bylaw impacts them. I will then send an email to the student athlete, the parent, and the head coach so that they're aware as well. If there is a sit period in there, I will communicate when's the first game they would be eligible to participate. Please feel free to contact me if you have questions about transfer or the transfer policy. I'll be happy to answer it. Thank you. Communication protocol with coaches. Throughout this season, you may have some questions, you may have some concerns. The proper way to handle that is to email the coach to request a meeting. So you have a scheduled meeting where the coach can focus on you, your son or daughter in that situation and answer those questions. Please do not show up before a practice, after a practice, or before or after a game trying to speak with the coach or meet with the coach. At that point, they're focused on all of their student athletes, and that's not the appropriate time to try and have a conversation about what your questions and concerns are. Scheduling a meeting allows them to focus on your situation and just your situation, and then they'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. Please do not contact me if you have questions about playing time, philosophy, style of play. Those are questions for the coach. I'm not at every practice. I cannot answer questions on why your son or daughter is playing or not playing. Uh, in terms of philosophy, style of play, we hire coaches that we believe are the best at what they do. They're experts at what they do. We empower them to do that and support them in that. If they're a coach here, that means that we already believe in their style of play, their philosophy. So those are not questions that I will be able to answer or that I will have meetings about. If you feel that your son or daughter is being discriminated against, there are things of that nature, then contact me immediately so I can launch an investigation. Those would be the appropriate times to contact the athletic director so that I can again launch an immediate investigation into any types of mistreatment, things of that nature. Our coaches will respond to you if you would like a meeting with them, and we'll answer things. One thing that I would encourage you to do, listen, we're all human. We all have our own opinions. We all have our own ideas on things. But please understand that our coaches are the ones that make the final decision. And please be careful about speaking about coaches and what you like or don't like in front of your student athletes, because student athletes obviously love their parents and want to please their parents, but they're also coaching under somebody that they need to believe in. They need to do things the way that they want to do in order to have a successful season and a good experience. And when they hear, negative talk about their coach or to their coach in front of them, sometimes that can create some issues for the student athlete, and we don't want that. That's a stressful situation for a student athlete to be placed in, where my parents are telling me this and my coaches are telling me that, and then what do I do? That's a lot for a student athlete to try and figure out, especially as they're still growing, they're still maturing, their brain's still functioning. And we just want to try and eliminate that as much as possible. Again, if you have questions, comments, concerns, reach out to the coaches. I'm a parent of a student athlete myself. So, I don't always agree with what her coaches do or always agree with the way they do everything, but I also have to allow her to go through that journey, and I'm choosing to have her be on that team. Then I need to choose to then I'm accepting that coach is going to make those decisions. So please just be aware of that. Referees are officials. Um, so I understand that we're going to get frustrated with calls or lack of calls in whatever sport it may be. Here's a few givens that I'm going to tell you that are going to happen this winter season that I already know are going to happen, even though no games have been played. Okay, referees or officials, whatever you choose to call them, They're going to miss calls. They're going to make mistakes. Coaches are going to make mistakes, and student athletes are going to make mistakes. All three of those people are going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. All right. What we have to do is navigate that the best way possible. So if a referee, you feel that they're making a mistake, they're not calling the game the right way, whatever it is that your opinion is, please let the coaches communicate with the official. Coaches can communicate with officials. Um, I can communicate with officials, with the head of officials if we have some concerns as well. Um, Please do not yell from the stands at officials, or yell at them or berate them. We've been pretty fortunate at Millennium High School to have you know families and student athletes that respect the officials. So we want to continue that going. Unfortunately, throughout the valley, there's been a rise in berating of officials, harassment of officials. There have been parents that have approached officials, put their hands on officials, and that has not happened at Millennium High School. And we want to make sure that continues to happen. Please do not approach officials at any time. Again, if you have a concern, then after the game, you can relay your concerns to the coach via email or phone call. You can do the same with me via email or phone call. We always relay that. We're able to evaluate officials this year, and those evaluations are used in determining if they're allowed to referee playoff games, et cetera. So I say that to say there are ways for us to express if we have concerns about official, but please let the coach or myself do that. Please do not insert yourself to do that. I can promise you this: yelling at the officials does not help our school, does not help your son or daughter in any way. That does not motivate an official to make different calls. If anything, it may play against us. So, again, they're going to make mistakes. They're human, the same as the rest of us. I'm a competitive person, so I certainly understand. But I ask again that you let the coaches and you let myself handle any concerns with referees and officials. And under no circumstances do we approach officials or do we put our hands on officials. That could lead to you not being allowed to attend any more games here at Millennium High School or at any of the places that we play. So again, please be respectful, even when you disagree. Thank you. So I want to thank you for taking your time to watch this parent meeting. If you have questions about anything that I've discussed in here, please feel free to reach out to me via email at rgordillo@agorfria.org, or you can contact me at 623-932-7200, extension 2138. I wish your sons and daughters the best experience this winter season. I look forward to seeing them in competition. I hope to see you out at games as well. I guess one last thing is all our tickets are still sold through GoFan. They are digital. We encourage you to buy in advance. There is no cash taken at the door. So gofan.co, and then you're going to want to type in Millennium High School, and it will show you all of our games. We are currently uploading them into GoFan, and they should be available soon. Thank you again. Have an awesome winter season. Go Tigers.